this is probably going to be the most simplest one for you to answer, but what if you're wrong?
Well, what if I'm wrong? I mean, anybody could be wrong. We could all be wrong about the flying spaghetti monster and the pink unicorn and the flying teapot. You happen to have been brought up, I would presume, in the Christian faith. You know what it's like not to believe in a particular faith because you're not a Muslim, you're not a Hindu. Why aren't you a Hindu? Because you happen to have been brought up in America, not in India. If you'd been brought up in India, you'd be a Hindu. If you were brought up in Denmark in the time of the Vikings, you'd be believing in Wotan and Thor. If you were brought up in classical Greece, you'd be believing in Zeus. If you were brought up in Central Africa, you'd be believing in the great Juju up the mountain. I mean, there's no particular reason to pick on the Judeo-Christian God in which, by the sheerest accident, you happen to have been brought up, and ask me the question, what if I'm wrong? What if you're wrong about the great Juju at the bottom of the sea?
Welcome to the 1 Minute Apologist. 1 Minute Apologist. If you had 1 minute to be able to unpack for the audience, we interview the world's leading apologists to provide credible answers to curious questions. Some skeptics would say, hey, you know what, this whole Christian thing, it's just a fluke. Suppose somebody was born in Saudi Arabia. They would be a Muslim by nature of where they were born.
Yes, that's very true, but to think that that somehow invalidates a person's Christian belief is a textbook example of a logical fallacy called the genetic fallacy. The genetic fallacy is trying to invalidate a position by showing how a person came to hold it. And that's obviously an invalid way of reasoning. A person might come to hold a belief for any number of reasons, some of them inadequate, but that doesn't show that the belief itself is false. So, for example, if you had been born in ancient Greece, you probably would have believed that the earth is flat and perhaps that the sun goes around the earth. But does that mean that your belief that the earth is round and that it goes around the sun is therefore unjustified or false? Well, obviously not. You cannot invalidate a belief simply by showing how a person came to hold it. That is to commit the genetic fallacy.